Part 1. My name's Jake Reynolds. Average guy from Los Angeles, 37 years old, a little over 6 feet tall, dark hair, blue eyes, and a build that's somewhere between dad bod and still trying to convince myself I'll get back into shape. I run a small but thriving construction business that specializes in custom home renovations. Not a millionaire, but I do well enough to keep us comfortable. My wife, Emily, she's beautiful in that effortless way. Chestnut hair, sharp green eyes, and a smile that can melt away the worst days. We met back in college, UCLA, during a party neither of us really wanted to attend. It was one of those fluke moments where the universe decides to toss you a gift for no good reason at all. We hit it off immediately. I made her laugh. She made me forget the whole world existed. We got married 5 years later, after scraping our way through our 20s trying to make something of ourselves. I built the business from scratch, working insane hours while Emily climbed the corporate ladder at a marketing firm. We bought a house, a fixer-upper in Silver Lake, because I'm a sucker for making things better. Emily called it our forever home, a little slice of suburban paradise complete with a deck I spent months perfecting. We had 2 kids, Aiden and Chloe. Aiden's 8, Chloe's 5. Both of them are a mix of Emily's features and my stubbornness. They were the highlight of my day every single day. Coming home to Chloe running into my arms while Aiden tried to pretend he was too cool for hugs. It was perfect. Emily and I had our routines, our inside jokes, and a mutual respect that I thought was unshakable. She'd mock me for being terrible at folding laundry, and I'd give her grief for always leaving her coffee cups half-finished on the kitchen counter. Normal stuff. Happy stuff. Weekends were our sanctuary. We'd take the kids to the park, grab burgers at this hole-in-the-wall diner we both loved, and talk about everything from home improvement plans to whether Aiden's newfound obsession with soccer was going to bankrupt us in gear costs. Emily loved those days, and so did I. Our marriage felt solid. Even our work lives seemed to complement each other. My business was thriving. Contracts were rolling in. I had a solid crew of guys I trusted, and Emily had just been promoted to some fancy-sounding title that meant more money and more respect. I was proud of her. Genuinely. I didn't even mind her late nights, the business trips, the after-hours work events. I figured it was just part of the grind. We were the kind of couple other people probably envied. Married a decade and still flirting with each other, still laughing at each other's jokes. We even took a trip to Hawaii last year to celebrate our 10-year anniversary. It was paradise, Emily in a bikini, the kids splashing around in the pool, me nursing a drink on the balcony feeling like the king of the world. We spent holidays with family, hosted barbecues with friends, and even started planning a road trip up the coast for the summer. Emily would tease me about my terrible singing when I'd crank up the radio on our drives, and I'd mock her for her obsession with overpriced lattes. It was perfect. It was ours. The mornings were always my favorite. Waking up to the smell of Emily's coffee brewing, Chloe giggling downstairs, Aiden already glued to his tablet. I'd find Emily in the kitchen, barefoot and beautiful, dancing to some oldies song while flipping pancakes. She'd grin when she caught me watching her, calling me a creep with that playful sparkle in her eye. Then she'd kiss me like it was the first time. I was living the dream. Everything felt solid, secure. We had built a life out of hard work and love, and there wasn't a day that went by where I didn't feel grateful for it. Our kids were thriving, too. Aiden had just made the travel soccer team, and Chloe was already showing signs of being a little artist with her constant doodles and sketches. Emily and I loved watching them grow, celebrating their achievements, and reassuring them when things didn't go their way. Emily and I would spend our evenings together after the kids were in bed, watching shows or talking about our plans for the future. Sometimes we'd sit out on the deck, just the two of us with a bottle of wine, laughing and reminiscing about our college days. It felt like we had everything anyone could ever want. Life was good. Really good. And I never saw any reason to question it. Part 2. It didn't happen all at once. It was more like a slow, creeping fog that settled over everything. Looking back, the first sign was how often Emily seemed distracted. She'd be lost in her phone more and more, tapping away with that concentrated look she usually reserved for work emails. I shrugged it off at first. Her promotion at work meant longer hours and more responsibilities, so I chalked it up to that. But it started to feel like she was slipping away in bits and pieces. Our conversations grew shorter, more routine. We still laughed and joked, but not as much. There was this underlying distance I couldn't quite put my finger on. I noticed she was dressing up more than usual for work. Nothing outrageous, but the effort was noticeable. New outfits, more makeup. Again, I brushed it off, telling myself she was just trying to match her new role. Maybe it was just part of her climbing the corporate ladder. But the little things started piling up. She'd go to happy hours with her colleagues more often than before. When I'd ask about them, her answers were always vague. Just the usual group, she'd say with a shrug, her eyes darting away like she had somewhere else to be. Her phone became her shadow. She'd keep it face down on the table, which she'd never done before. And she was more protective of it, always snatching it up the moment it buzzed or chimed. If I asked who it was, she'd answer, but her responses were clipped. Just work stuff. My mom. A friend from the office. The nights she worked late became more frequent. She'd call to say she was swamped with last-minute projects or caught up in meetings. Sometimes, I'd hear the noise of a bar or restaurant in the background. When I'd ask about it, she'd explain it away as a work dinner or grabbing a quick bite with colleagues before heading back to the office. We started arguing more. Not knockdown, drag-out fights, but sharp, snappy exchanges that left both of us simmering. It was usually over stupid stuff, me forgetting to pick something up from the store or her snapping at me for asking too many questions about her day. But those moments left a bad taste in my mouth. Our intimacy had taken a hit, too. It wasn't gone, but it was definitely less frequent. And when it did happen, it felt different. Rushed. Mechanical. Like she was just going through the motions. I tried to talk to her about it. I told her I felt like we were drifting apart. She'd reassure me, say she was just tired or stressed. It's just work, Jake. Things are crazy right now. And I wanted to believe her. So, I did. But the doubt kept growing. It wasn't just the emotional distance, it was the physical one, too. Emily would turn in early most nights, claiming exhaustion. When I'd join her in bed, she'd already be asleep or pretending to be. And if I tried to bring it up, she'd get defensive. Can't you just let me rest? It's been a long day. One night, I woke up around midnight and found her downstairs on the couch, her phone screen lighting up her face. She jumped when she saw me, eyes wide and guilty. Couldn't sleep, she mumbled, putting her phone down like it was a hot coal. Who were you texting? I asked, trying to keep my tone light. No one. Just scrolling through stuff. Trying to get tired. Her voice was casual, but her eyes wouldn't meet mine. From that point on, the unease never really left. It gnawed at me during the day and kept me awake at night. But every time I tried to address it, Emily would brush me off or snap back, her patience worn thin. The excuses became routine. Too much work. Too tired. Too busy. It was like she was building a wall between us, brick by brick, and I had no idea how to tear it down. Even the kids seemed to notice something was off. Chloe asked me once, "Why is Mommy always on her phone?" Aiden had grown quieter around her, like he sensed the tension and was trying to stay out of the blast radius. I kept telling myself it was just a rough patch. That all marriages had their ups and downs. That Emily and I were just going through one of those phases everyone talks about. But the nagging doubt never went away. It was like a splinter under my skin, small but constant, refusing to heal. And the more I tried to ignore it, the deeper it seemed to burrow. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe I was just imagining things. But deep down, I knew something was changing. And it wasn't changing for the better. The worst part? I couldn't even pinpoint when things had started to shift. All I knew was that everything felt different, like we were slipping away from each other, and I couldn't do a thing to stop it. Part 3. The moment Emily dropped the bomb on me, I felt like the ground had been pulled from beneath my feet. I was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping my morning coffee while the kids played in the living room. Emily had this look on her face, one I'd never seen before. Determined, almost rehearsed. "Jake, we need to talk," she said, her tone flat but serious. My stomach twisted. Nothing good ever started with those words. "Sure," I replied, trying to keep my voice calm. "What's on your mind?" She sat down across from me, clasping her hands together like she was bracing herself. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she began. "About us. About our marriage. And I feel like we need something different. Something new." "What are you talking about?" I asked, frowning. "I mean, maybe we should think about opening up our marriage." The words spilled out of her mouth like a confession. Trying something different. Exploring things outside of us. Just seeing if that helps. I stared at her, completely blindsided. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Emily, my wife, the mother of my children, was suggesting we bring other people into our marriage like it was just a casual experiment. "Emily, where is this even coming from?" I asked, my voice shaking despite my best efforts to keep steady. "We've always been good together. Sure, things have been rough lately. But this isn't a solution." I've been reading about it, she said quickly, her eyes darting away from mine. How couples who try open relationships sometimes find their way back to each other stronger. It's about freedom and trust and growing. Growing. I echoed, my disbelief turning into anger. You think inviting other people into our marriage is going to make us grow? Emily, how is that supposed to fix anything? It's not about fixing, she insisted, her voice firm now. It's about exploring. About finding what really makes us happy. Don't you want to be happy, Jake? I was happy, I snapped, my fist clenching on the table. I was happy until you started shutting me out. Until you started acting like you didn't even want to be around me. My voice had risen louder than I intended, and I saw Emily flinch. Jake, please, she whispered, her shoulders slumping. I'm just trying to be honest. I don't want us to end up resenting each other. Isn't it better to try something new than to just drift apart? You think this is going to bring us closer? I shook my head, laughing bitterly. Emily, all this sounds like is you trying to justify something you've already made up your mind about. Her expression tightened. I'm just trying to be real with you. To share how I'm feeling. You said you wanted me to be honest, right? Yeah, but not like this. My voice cracked. You're telling me you want to be with other people and somehow expect me to be okay with it? I'm not saying you have to be okay with it right away, she replied. But maybe if you thought about it, tried to understand what I'm trying to say. She trailed off, her eyes finally meeting mine. So, what are you asking, Emily? For me to just give you permission to go out and do whatever you want? And I'm supposed to sit back and be fine with it? No, she said softly. I'm asking you to consider the idea. To think about us trying something different. Together. Together, I repeated, the word bitter on my tongue. Emily, this sounds like you're trying to justify doing something you already want to do. Maybe you've already started. Her eyes went wide, almost offended. Jake, I'm being honest with you right now. Can't you at least try to hear me out? I'm hearing you, I said. I'm hearing you loud and clear. You want to open up our marriage. And you think that's supposed to fix what's wrong between us. My hands trembled, my chest tight with frustration. I just think it could be good for us, she replied, her voice shaky but determined. A chance to explore and maybe even appreciate what we have more. I stared at her, feeling like I was looking at a stranger. I can't believe this, I said. I can't believe you actually think this is a good idea. Emily stood up, her shoulders tense. I just want to talk about it. To be honest, isn't that what marriage is supposed to be? Marriage is supposed to be about trust, I shot back. About commitment. Not about throwing everything away just because things get hard. She looked at me, her expression unreadable. Well, I guess we see things differently then. Emily turned and walked out of the kitchen, leaving me alone at the table with my cold coffee and a churning stomach. Her words echoed in my mind, repeating over and over until they felt like a punch to the gut. I sat there, stunned, wondering how the woman I loved could even suggest something like this. And more than anything, I wondered what it all really meant. Part 4. The decision to take back control didn't come to me all at once. It was like a slow burn, anger simmering just beneath the surface until it couldn't be contained any longer. Emily's suggestion of an open marriage had left me rattled, but once the shock wore off, something else took its place, resolve. She wanted freedom? Fine. I'd give her all the freedom she wanted, but on my terms. I wasn't about to sit by and let her rewrite the rules of our marriage without my say. I started by gathering information. If Emily was already testing the waters, I needed to know. I checked our phone records, skimmed through her social media, and reviewed our bank statements with an intensity I'd never felt before. Nothing obvious popped up, but the absence of evidence only fueled my suspicion. That's when I decided to take things a step further. I installed a tracking app on her phone, something discreet, designed to back up her messages. It was a move I never imagined making, but then again, I never imagined my wife would suggest bringing other people into our marriage. But snooping wasn't enough. If Emily was truly drifting away, I needed to be ready for the fallout. So, I hired a lawyer. Linda Carter, a woman known for her ruthless efficiency and sharp mind. During our first meeting, I laid everything out for her. Emily's bizarre suggestion, her sudden secrecy, the emotional distance that had been growing between us. Linda listened intently, her expression cool and composed. You're making the right move by coming to me now, she said. If she's already exploring her options, you need to protect yourself. Financially, legally, emotionally. She helped me gather all the documents I'd need, proof of income, our shared assets, retirement accounts, even a detailed list of Emily's earnings. Linda's advice was clear. Keep things as normal as possible. Don't let Emily suspect anything until I was ready to act. I took her advice to heart. When Emily brought up the open marriage concept again, I pretended to be open to the idea. I asked questions, feigned curiosity, made her think I was coming around to her way of thinking. In reality, I was documenting everything, compiling evidence in case things went south. And while I was playing my part, I started making changes of my own. I moved funds into accounts Emily couldn't access, separated my business finances from our personal accounts, and ensured that all of my valuable assets were protected. If this was going to end, I wouldn't be left with nothing. I also started going out more. Not because I was interested in meeting anyone new, but because I wanted Emily to notice. I wanted her to feel the same insecurity she was making me feel. And it worked. She grew more irritable, her suspicion evident every time I left the house without explanation. The kids were the hardest part of all of it. I tried to keep their lives as normal as possible, taking them to school, helping with homework, playing soccer in the yard with Aiden, or coloring with Chloe. I couldn't let them see the cracks forming between their mother and me. Eventually, my efforts paid off. The tracking app I'd installed on Emily's phone picked up a series of messages from someone I didn't recognize. At first, the conversations were casual, work-related, mostly. But as the days went by, the tone shifted. Messages became flirty, then explicit. The man's name was Brian, a coworker Emily had mentioned before, but never in a way that seemed important. The realization was like a punch to the gut, but this time, I didn't fall apart. I saved every message, every image, every incriminating piece of evidence and backed it all up. When I handed it over to Linda, she gave me a nod of approval. "This is exactly what we needed," she said. "If you choose to move forward with a divorce, you're in a strong position. But we need to proceed carefully." I agreed, feeling something I hadn't felt in months: control. Emily had made her choice, but she had no idea what I'd been planning. I was done trying to reason with her, done pretending that we could work things out. If she wanted freedom, I'd give it to her. But it would be on my terms. I was ready to take back everything she thought she could steal from me. And for the first time, I felt prepared for whatever came next. Part 5. Emily thought she had everything under control. She assumed I'd crumble under her betrayal, grovel at her feet, and beg her to stay. But that's where she miscalculated. I'm not the kind of man who rolls over and accepts defeat. Not anymore. The moment our divorce was finalized, I cut her out of my life like a surgeon removing a cancerous tumor. No room for infection, no room for manipulation. She'd chosen her path, and I made sure she walked it alone. I dedicated myself to rebuilding everything she'd tried to tear down. My business became my focus, a distraction from the wreckage of my marriage. But it also became something else, a testament to my resilience. I poured every ounce of energy into it, expanding my network, landing bigger contracts, hiring better talent. The long hours didn't feel like a burden. They felt like therapy. Soon enough, my company was more successful than ever. Clients raved about the quality of my work, my reliability, my commitment to excellence. Word spread fast, and with every new contract, I felt myself growing stronger, more capable. Emily's betrayal had once felt like the end of everything I valued. Now, it was the fuel driving me to prove her wrong. But it wasn't just about business. I threw myself into fatherhood, too. Aiden and Chloe needed stability, and I was determined to be the one to give it to them. I took them on trips, coached Aiden's soccer team, encouraged Chloe's love for art by filling her room with sketchbooks and colored pencils. I became their anchor, the one constant they could depend on. Emily's absence from their lives was like a toxin finally being purged. The tension and confusion they'd sensed when she was around melted away. They laughed more, smiled more. And so did I. As the months went by, Emily's attempts to contact me became more desperate. Calls, texts, emails, even messages through mutual friends. But I ignored every one of them. She had made her choice, and I had made mine. She lost her job a few months after the divorce. Apparently, her so-called new fling Brian wasn't interested in being anything more than a temporary distraction. Once her personal life unraveled, so did her professional one. I heard through the grapevine that she tried to get back with Brian, but he wanted nothing to do with her chaos. I didn't gloat. I didn't feel satisfaction in her misery. All I felt was relief that she was no longer my problem. She'd sabotaged herself, and I refused to let her drag me down with her. My life took on a new kind of clarity. I focused on my health, my happiness, my goals. I started working out again, rebuilt friendships I'd neglected during the marriage, and discovered new interests that made me feel more alive than I had in years. The gym became a sanctuary. Every weight lifted was another piece of anger shed. Every mile run was another reminder that I was moving forward, leaving the wreckage of my marriage behind. I transformed myself physically and mentally, becoming stronger in ways Emily never expected. I built new relationships, too. Friends who respected me. Business connections who admired my work ethic. Even a few women who saw me for who I was, not the broken man Emily had tried to create. By the time a full year had passed, I was thriving. My business was more successful than ever. My kids were happy and well-adjusted, and I was genuinely content. Not just surviving. Thriving. Emily's attempts to reconcile became nothing more than background noise. Her pleas for forgiveness, for another chance, were nothing but echoes of her own failures. I ignored every attempt, deleted every message, and refused to engage with her manipulative games. I had become untouchable, stronger, sharper, and I owed it all to her betrayal. The day I bought my new house was the day I realized I had truly moved on. A sleek, modern home overlooking the city, a symbol of my new life, built by my own hands and determination. A place where Emily's shadow couldn't reach me. My kids loved the new place. Chloe painted murals on her bedroom walls, bright splashes of color and creativity. Aiden claimed the spare room as his own little gaming haven. Their laughter filled the house in a way I hadn't heard in years. That was when I knew I had one. Not because I'd beaten Emily, but because I'd found something better than revenge. I'd found peace. I'd found strength. I'd found myself. The people who once pitted me for what Emily had done now looked at me with respect. I had taken what she tried to break and built something even stronger from the rubble. And I made sure everyone knew it. Emily faded into the background of my life, a distant memory that held no power over me anymore. I heard she tried to rebuild, but every attempt seemed to crumble under the weight of her own bad decisions. She'd made her bed, and now she was forced to lie in it, alone. I had built a new life, one free of her manipulation and deceit. My business continued to thrive. My kids grew happier and more confident with every passing day. I rebuilt myself from the ashes she left behind, and I emerged stronger, smarter, and more resilient than ever before. Emily was nothing more than a painful lesson, a reminder of what I would never tolerate again. Her betrayal had been a catalyst, forcing me to rebuild myself from the ground up. And what I built was stronger, sharper, and untouchable. People like her try to drag you down, but I refused to be her victim. I turned her betrayal into my motivation, and I came out of it better than I ever was before. The best revenge? Living well. And I was doing just that. There was no going back. The end.